My name is Eric Gottesman, and I did not intend to be an artist. I studied history and politics. I worked at the Supreme Court in Washington, and I planned to go to law school and go on to work in a career in social justice and human rights. But through a stroke of serendipity, I was offered an art fellowship for a year to Ethiopia. I knew little about art and nothing about Ethiopia when I went away, but I went anyway. And since that moment 16 years ago, I've been working on collaborative and interdisciplinary art projects in Ethiopia that celebrate and explore complex questions about the subversive powers of art. My mediums are often collaboration and translation across language, across borders, and across time. My 16-year commitment in Ethiopia continues with my creative capital project called Understanding Oromaye. It will involve a series of profoundly collaborative workshops based on a controversial Amharic novel where I discuss the text with college students, university students, groups of citizens, artists, and others. Together, we will produce photographs, video installations, and stories to be displayed in late 2016 in public spaces in Ethiopia and Eritrea. Across several disciplines, this project celebrates an underappreciated volume of African literature and also human beings' capacity to resist, often through art, under a legacy of fear and repression. Oromaye is an Ethiopian novel written in 1983 by writer Balu Girma. His fictional characters were caricatures of government officials, so you can imagine it upset a lot of people. 10 days after he published the book, it was banned and pulled off the shelves. 5 months later, Balu Girma disappeared, never to be heard from again. I came across the book because I was looking into the recent history of Ethiopia. It turned out that in the 1980s, creative production was considered a threat to the regime, so all writing was censored and all cameras were outlawed. I began wondering, in restrictive societies, how do citizens express political dissent? I asked this question to a close friend of mine in Ethiopia who had been arrested for unknown reasons at age 18, around the same time that the book was published. She told me about the book, and we began translating it together. She would read it to me in Amharic, and I would write it down in English. Starting in this way, and later with assistance from others, including Balu Girma's family, my team and I now have a full English translation of Oromaye. And recently we published the first chapter, only the second piece of Amharic literature ever to be published in English. We've begun producing a series of photographs based on the book and on the life of the author. And we've staged interventions where actors playing roles from the book intervene in spaces of everyday life. Thanks to this Creative Capital grant, I traveled to Ethiopia last month for an initial research trip, just a few days after the 2015 elections, which were very much on the minds of many people I spoke with, including this unemployed half-Eritrean mechanic named Baraket. After refusing to join the dominant political party, Baraket was suspected of spying, and he tells stories of secret police following him around, disrupting his life, even trying to poison him. Participants in my project, like Baraket, are citizens, simultaneously playing themselves as well as fictional characters. In front of my camera, he transformed himself into a proud Ethiopian military man and acted out scenes from the novel. But when I asked him in character what he loved about his country, he couldn't maintain his fictional facade.
I love my country, all my friend. It's just... It's a tough question.
Transforming back to himself, he told me why he was unable to pretend to love his country. In our interview, he spoke of how he felt persecuted and silenced by his government, and how, like Balu, he wants to express his frustration. I asked him why he was willing to speak about this on camera, knowing there could be negative consequences.
Now I don't care if they charge me and kill me today. I'm getting tired of such a life.
Baraket has become a close friend of mine, and his story is just one of the many examples that I've come across of people whose political dissent is made to look like terrorism. Though Oromaye was written long ago, a legacy of fear continues, and as a result, citizens must find a way to say what they want to say indirectly. In Ethiopian poetry, there's a convention called kine, a sort of double entendre that allows the poet or the singer to say one thing while meaning something else. For author Balu Girma, for me, and for citizens like Barakat and others, fiction, theater, art, the camera, these can all be powerfully subversive vehicles that conceal their true intention, to speak what is not allowed to be spoken. As I mentioned before, my Creative Capital project will involve a series of collaborative workshops where I work with artists and citizens as well as university students in Ethiopia and Eritrea with the hope of understanding the state of creative expression and authority in these two countries today. From these conversations, we will produce photographs, video installations, performances, and texts to be locally displayed in late 2016 in public spaces in those two countries, including in the theater in Addis Ababa City Hall that we shot in a few weeks ago, as well as 13 Italian-built cinemas that are still used in Asmara today. Last year, I was granted a rare visa to visit Eritrea, and I toured these buildings. These installations will be documented in a book and a documentary film. In the past, I've produced public art in Ethiopia, including this traveling interactive installation in 2006, based on the traditional coffee ceremony. Because my current project entails production and exhibition in neighboring Eritrea, where creative expression is even more repressed, this will be my most challenging installation to date. So, can art serve as real political engagement in hostile environments? Yes, and Balu Girma's novel is evidence of it. And having learned from Balu Girma and many other Ethiopians over the past decade and a half, I want to share my commitment to understanding how art can be a form of resistance with a local and a global audience. To do this, I will need conversations about how this can happen, as well as funding for production and research. I'll also need local political connections, especially in Eritrea, to carry out this very sensitive project. I'll need a publisher for the book and a distributor for the film, both of whom I'm hoping can help me think through how this publication can honor the original book as well as my own work. And finally, I want to leave you with this thought. These issues are not specific to Africa. They relate to broad themes of power and resistance. I'm looking for bold venues that can dream of educating viewers about both the context in which this work was made, as well as how these seemingly faraway issues have relevance to what is happening here at home. Thank you very much.